Hey guys, it's Jonathan Delora, and today I'm going to tell you what I think of Slipknot.
Are you ready?
Alright, so Slipknot is one of those bands that is definitely over the top. Slipknot definitely falls in an extreme metal category wherever you may see fit. Even though I guess their genre would still be considered nu metal, which, like, you know, you'd see with, I guess, Korn and like Linkin Park and like those types of bands. For some reason, similarly to like how Van Halen wasn't hated on, even though glam metal was hated on, Slipknot, even though nu metal is hated on, Slipknot is not hated on by other metal people as much. Like, obviously there's going to be people out there that are like, oh my god, this band is so popular, and like I've heard so much about them. But, you know, in the grand scheme of music, like nu metal, for some reason, like people love to hate it. Like, it's one of those things that, you know, it's like, I don't know if it's because of the samples and stuff like that, or like all like the record scratches and DJs and whatnot, but you know, people love to hate nu metal as compared to, say, like death metal or black metal, which was also very popular in the 90s. But, you know, Slipknot was just one of those bands that, even though I wouldn't say that they're very death metal-like, they definitely have extreme metal qualities to them, and people definitely, like, respect Slipknot. So what got me into Slipknot? What is it that I like about them? So what I like about them is I love the fact that, you know, they have this whole larger-than-life thing, because, I mean, in the end, that's what heavy metal is all about. Like, it's always about being larger than life and being louder and just extreme. Like, if you look at drum kits, like, you know, you have these gigantic drum kits and stuff like that. And, like, I really feel like Slipknot definitely has that aspect of heavy metal. Like, you know, they put on a good show. Like, let's put it that way, too. Like, beyond the music is awesome. The music is also, like, very, like, well done. It's the production value is very high, and it's awesome. You could hear all these different genres of music that they pull in to kind of create their own unique sound, I guess. And you have 9 people that just flood the stage. And, you know, between putting on this larger than life and big production value and a good show, you know, that's, I think, what's awesome about Slipknot and what really attracts people to, or at least me, to it. And among other things too, like the subject matter they typically deal with, you know, which I feel like a lot of like 90s era nu metal bands focused on, but we're always about, like, you know, insanity and stuff like that. And, you know, like, as opposed to in the 80s, a lot of the thrash metal bands would focus on bigger things like war and stuff like that, which is a lot of people killing. You know, a lot of your heavier metal genres went to more like the individual, if that makes any sense. And I feel like Slipknot has a lot more songs that are about that, like the individual being the one that's causing the devastation, as opposed to just like, oh, there are these big devastating things out there, you know, which to an extent kind of makes things feel a little bit more personal and can be a little bit more extreme at times. What attracted me to them specifically was, so to give you the backstory, I guess, would be, when I was a kid, I listened to classic rock. Like, that's what my parents listened to and stuff like that. So it was always like 70s and 80s classic rock. Well, then when I got into like high school and stuff, I started listening to like those 80s thrash metal bands, because it was the same kind of, you know, era and stuff like that. It was more extreme, but it wasn't that extreme. And then, you know, once you start listening to like Slayer and stuff, you start getting into like more extreme music. And even though I'm not a huge fan of like death metal and stuff like that, which are the extreme genres, I really do like Slipknot. And the song, I guess, that really stuck out to me that I really liked was Duality.
I push my fingers into my...
And funny enough, I hadn't really heard of it before, you know, I started to try and get into them. But the song, Before I Forget, was also kind of popular. It was in Guitar Hero 3, so I knew of that. But Duality, I think, was the first song that, like, I really said, wow, this is awesome. This band is Slipknot. They're cool. Now, you know, they do the whole mask thing and stuff, which I know some people are, like, for and against. I think it's kind of cool. Like, I think that it's awesome. They have, like, their own, like, personalities and stuff, and they put on this big show. So it's, like, another big thing that attracts me to them. But there are 4 words that attract me to them, and those are Corey Taylor and Joey Jordison. So for me, one of the big things in music is getting into the people who are in the bands, and Slipknot has 9 people, so there's plenty of people to pick from to try and get into this band. You know, they have 3 drummers, and they have like a samples guy and stuff like that. So among them, the reason why I picked Corey Taylor and Joey Jordison, though, is because, Joey Jordison is a freaking incredible drummer. You see him on, like, the list of greatest drummers and stuff like that, and the reason why I think Joey Jordison is really important in, like, the history of music, and especially heavy metal and extreme music, is because this is commonplace nowadays, but there's this drumming technique that I'll refer to it as quads, because I think that's what they call it, but essentially is instead of just using your hands or just using your feet and, like, playing rhythms that way, what they were doing for fills was they were actually using double bass, and they would play 2 on the hands and then 2 on the feet, and you could play like these 16th note runs that are really quick. And Joey Jordison, and I say they because the other person that I could think of is Chris Adler of Lamb of God. Those are like the two guys that I think really were the founders. I understand there's probably people that have done it beforehand, but a lot of drummers or people that are into this style of music will tell you that, yeah, the first place that they kind of heard that stuff was Joey Jordison or maybe Chris Adler. I always say Chris Adler because it's kind of where I first started hearing it too, at least in like earlier music. But like I said, this is commonplace. Like you listen to bands in like the 2000s or nowadays, you know, there's like just normal rock bands out there that do quads. But back then, I mean, that was a pretty impressive thing. These guys were machine gun sounding drums, you know. And then, of course, Corey Taylor. I mean, Corey Taylor is a freaking phenomenal vocalist. He has one of the largest vocal ranges in like popular music, and even though that's not indicative of how a vocalist performs, like, you know, vocal range is one thing, talent is another thing, I guess, but, you know, Corey Taylor, his voice is very dynamic, and I don't mean that in the context of music such that like it can be very loud and soft and stuff, because it can. I mean, Corey Taylor is one of those types of, it's very different, let's put it that way. He can apply his voice to very different styles of music, which is why I would also suggest that you guys go out and check out Stone Sour. I don't know if I'm going to do a, you know, what I think of them, because I'm not a huge Stone Sour fan, but, you know, Stone Sour's got some good music that's like, what the hell, this is the same vocalist, where he's doing almost like pop punk vocals, and then you go over and you listen to Slipknot, and he's doing like these metal screams and stuff like that. No one knows that it feels that forever, but no one ever tells you that forever feels like home. Sitting all alone inside your head. But Corey Taylor definitely has like a very like dynamic, I guess, but I can't think of a better word to describe it, vocal style that, you know, could be applied to all these different genres, or I should say types of music, where when you listen to a Slipknot song, like, you can have super extreme parts and then not very extreme parts. He's a type of vocalist that could sing you to sleep and scare you to death. So to me, that's what always got me into the bands, was the people. Of course, you also had like the guitar player, like Mick Thompson. I always thought was cool. His mask I always thought was cool. Like I considered dressing up like him for Halloween a couple of years, and it's like nobody's gonna know who the hell this is. Like if you just have one member of Slipknot, or people are gonna be like, "Who are you?" You know. So it's like, okay, but no, yeah, definitely the appeal of this band is going to be on like their larger than life and their stage show, and just the insanity that this band kind of lives up to. So at this point, I'll let you guys know on, I guess, how to get into this band. What's a couple of songs of theirs. We'll go through their discography, and it's going to be kind of weird. They are an extreme metal band, so I'll try and pick out the songs that you could use to get into them, even though you're not necessarily into like extreme music, and then I'll even let you know which songs are more extreme and which ones aren't. That way maybe you could ease your way into the more extreme songs. So of course I've already mentioned Duality, and before I forget, those are like the big ones. Those are going to be like the staple songs, the most popular ones, and you know, we're going to definitely put those at like the list. I don't know what I would say my favorite Slipknot song is. Duality's probably up there just because it was like the song that got me into Slipknot. But I guess as we go through our list, I'll let you know if there's anything that's like, wow, I really do like that song. Because I can already imagine a couple in my mind that I like more than others. But let's jump into it. So on the debut album, the self-titled, there's a bunch of great songs on here. But I think that we have to start off, and this is cool, by the way. Let me just preface it with saying this. The songs are produced in such a way that if you put them on a playlist, they sound like incredible one after the next. Like, there's no songs that have like hard stops and stuff like that. I remember one time I watched a YouTube video of like best Slipknot songs, and the guy put them just back to back, but it sounded like he blended them together. And somebody asked on like the comments, he goes, hey, how did you blend them together so well? And he goes, I didn't. I just took them off the album and I put them back to back. And it just kind of sounds like each song kind of just blends into the next one, even though there's probably a lot of songs on here that, actually I know there's not a lot of songs on here that are supposed to be like bleeding into the next song. But to start off, the very first song off the first album is this 36-second song that I think perfectly introduces like what the band's about and stuff like that. And it's called 742-617-000027. And that's actually the ISBN of their, I guess it was like they consider it, I guess, their first album because it actually was on the shelves in stores. It has an ISBN, but it's more of, I guess, a demo tape is how you can look at it. So the name of that was called Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat, and it was released in '96, and then 3 years later they released this album here. And I definitely think that first song, it's 36 seconds just to introduce who the hell Slipknot is. But if you're going to be putting this onto like a playlist with other songs, I would suggest not having that one. But if you're going to like listen to Slipknot, that's a cool one to introduce it if you're not familiar or if you haven't really ever listened to their music before. So then the next song is Sick, and that has to stay on the list. I mean, that's a staple song. It's one of my favorite songs by them. It's one of the songs that got me into them. And I definitely think that song, let's put it this way, that first song that I told you with all the numbers in it bleeds perfectly into Sick. So even if you want to put them on a playlist, I don't know how you could do this. I don't think like Spotify or anything can do this, but if you could find maybe like a YouTube video or something of stitching those two songs together, it's pretty freaking cool how they sound like on the album. The next song is Eyeless, and I think that this song is the first one where you could start to see like all of their, you know, hip-hop influence and stuff like that, and rap influence, because they have like a lot of samples and stuff like that they've incorporated into the music, and it's really good. We're going to keep that one on the list. We're also going to keep Wait and Bleed on the list. Now, this is going to be the first song that I would say is a lighter song, if you will. It's probably like the most listenable one that I could think of. Like if I think of all of the Slipknot songs, Wait and Bleed is probably like the most listenable one. So if you're gonna start off with a Slipknot song that you're like, you know, because Sick and Eyeless are kind of heavy songs, but like Wait and Bleed is kind of like a lighter song, and you can start off, I guess, with that one, even though the subject matter is kind of dark. Surfacing is the next song. Got to put that one on the list too. That's a freaking awesome song. Again, it has samples in it and stuff like that. Super overproduced and stuff like that. I love it. I can't get enough of it. It sounds stupid because I'm literally just going in the order of this album, but I think that after this next song, which is Spit It Out, those will be the good ones for like the first album. I mean, you can listen to the whole thing if you want, it's awesome, but we'll just take the first 6 songs off of the first record and just put that right down the list. Really cool. Spit It Out's an awesome song. I guess it deals with the fact that like radio stations wouldn't play their music back then, and then when they became popular, then they all of a sudden wanted to start playing their music, and it's like, oh, now you want to play it. It has rap elements in it and stuff. Like Corey Taylor raps the verse, and he does like a rap at first, and then he gets in like this heavier rap, and it's cool. And like they do this whole thing at the end where they have everybody like sitting down, and they have everybody jump up at the end and stuff like that. It's a freaking cool song. It was a cool song live. Like definitely, Slipknot is one of those bands that like watching the recordings does not do it justice. Going to a live show, the like music is here, then like the videos and stuff are like here, and then they're watching their live stuff is like just like here, and then freaking like seeing their live performance is like way up here. Like not like no comparison to like, you know, you watch their live shows and stuff, it's like, all right, this is kind of cool, whatever, and like you see them all jumping around and stuff, but like when you go and you see them live, you can see all 9 people like up on stage just going nuts and freaking playing like the shit out of their instruments, you know. Like they have like deals where, you know, they'll take flaming baseball bats and hit like a keg and stuff like that. Like it's insane. Like you just, I can't describe enough like how much their actual live show adds to the extreme nature of the music and like the over-the-top, larger-than-life nature of the music. So the next album is Iowa, and funny enough, I kind of want to touch on that for a second. The one thing I really find funny about Slipknot is, out of all freaking places that they could have come out of, they come out of Iowa. Like, I think, what are the American Pickers from Iowa or something? Like, what do you grow potatoes or corn or something like that? But yeah, Iowa, such a strange thing. And off of this album, oh geez, let's see what we want to pick. Okay, so this is probably one of, if not the heaviest songs. Well, there's a couple of them. Okay, so we're gonna go with People Equal Shit. That song is freaking insane. And if you want to hear a funny version of that song, you gotta listen to Richard Cheese's version. If you're familiar with Slipknot, go listen to Richard Cheese's version of People Equal Shit. It's incredible.
I feel like a wound, like I got a fucking gun against my head. You live when I'm dead. People equal shit. People equal shit. People equal shit. People equal shit. Come on.
Otherwise, put this on your playlist if you're not familiar with them, but be forewarned, this is a heavy, heavy song. And you talk about Joey Jordison and drumming and just over-the-top drumming. This freaking song, the intro is insane, and the middle part is insane. Like, there's just like a drum break that's insane. I feel like if I'm talking about Slipknot, I can't not mention Josh Steffen. He's a YouTuber. He does a bunch of like Slipknot and Dream Theater covers. He's a freaking phenomenal drummer, but he actually has a tutorial funny of specifically this song, and you have to freaking, I'll link his video in the description of People Equal Shit, just so you can see the drumming like on good cameras, and just like of somebody in like a basement or whatever drumming to that song. But freaking phenomenal piece. Disaster Piece, we'll put it on there anyway. It's not like a huge song of theirs, I guess. It's pretty big. But even like My Plague, but those two are kind of like eh. But definitely the Heretic Anthem definitely has to go on the list. I mean, like, it's, again, a freaking ridiculously heavy song that just has to go on this list. And I think that's pretty good for Iowa, because I know that I'm gonna have a lot more of like other albums on our list, and I kind of only want to pick a few from each one. But I think that'll wrap it up for Iowa. All right, so Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses. This is like the first Slipknot album that actually has like, I guess, acoustically driven songs. Unfortunately, I don't think that I'm going to give you any of those songs today. The only reason why I say it is because, oh geez, I mean, what do we want to pick here? This album is the album that made Slipknot go from big to huge. This, obviously, it has Duality on here, and it has Before I Forget on here. Vermilion is another good song, along with Vermilion Part 2. I guess we could pick those, and the Blister exists. So we'll put all of those songs on here. They're pretty much like the singles off of the album, but I do think that that's a pretty good spread of music. But this is a good album to listen to the whole thing to. If you're wanting to get into Slipknot and stuff, this is definitely probably this is the staple album. This is the one that's when people look to Metallica and they talk about Master of Puppets, this is the Slipknot album, is Volume 3. All right, so off of All Hope Is Gone, which is their 4th album, I actually forgot Psychosocial and Sulfur are both on this album. So Sulfur and Psychosocial, they're songs 3 and 4, both huge songs. And Sulfur, by the way, is one of the lighter songs. So if you're not that into the extreme music, you can listen to Sulfur. But Psychosocial is, that is a freaking powerhouse song. That is they play it every time live type of thing. That's a big Slipknot song, so it's got to go on the list. And then the other one on this list is, I guess, we can include Snuff. It's kind of a lighter song as well. But I'll include that one on the list. And then that'll be our 3 from All Hope Is Gone. Alright, so now off of Point 5, The Gray Chapter, there's a couple of songs on here. The Devil and I is probably the biggest one. Oh, The Negative One is also on here. Those are 2 really big songs. And The Devil and I is a quieter song, so that's another one, if you're not too into the extreme music, but it has a couple extreme parts. But the other one on here I think is Kill Pop as well, is more of a hidden gem type of thing. I wouldn't say it's a huge Slipknot song, but I guess we could pick those 3 off of this album, and that'll be a pretty good collection of songs off of here. Alright, so then their latest album that came out in 2019 is called We Are Not Your Kind, and it has a lot of good songs on here, actually. Funny enough, I should mention that I said Joey Jordison is the reason why I kind of got into Slipknot, and he left the band, so he isn't even on this album. And I believe that the drummer's name is Jay Weinberg, who's actually the son of the drummer Max Weinberg, who played for Bruce Springsteen for I think it was Bruce Springsteen for the longest time. And funny enough, he's good, don't get me wrong, but there's just something about it that's I am one of those people that's the Joey Jordison lover dudes. Freaking I'm out there I think Joey Jordison is freaking incredible. I think he's a virtuoso at the drums, and there will always be this thing that I'm I like the Joey Jordison era Slipknot better. And you're for the drumming, it's yeah, I don't know, it's something about it it just added that extra insanity to the music. And don't get me wrong, Jay Weinberg is a freaking phenomenal drummer as well, but there's just something about Joey Jordison that he just added extra little things in his drumming that just made the music way over the top. But off of this new album, there's a couple of good songs in here that I really want to put on this list. So Unsainted was the first single. That's a really good song. The next one, I believe, was the 3rd single or maybe 2nd single, but it's Nero Forte, and it's my favorite song off of this new album, believe it or not. It's weird. It's kind of it has this major feel to it when you listen to the music, but it's so interesting sounding that I don't know, it's definitely my favorite song off of this new album. And then there's also the last song on here, which is Solway Firth, and it's a really freaking cool song. The intro is really creepy sounding and stuff. It's the last song on the album, and it's just a really cool song to listen to, and I would add that. Funny enough, what I just learned now is the song All Out Life was actually released separately. It was a single of theirs, and we should add that one to our list as well. But before this album, I guess, if you want to keep the chronology in order, if chronology is even a word. But I actually thought that All Out Life was on this record, and it turns out that it's not. It was before this record even came out, but that one definitely should be on the list as well. It's a good song, and it got some good radio play. So ultimately, that's what I think of Slipknot. Just to recap again, I think that they're awesome from their larger than life and just over the top music and videos and stage presence, and the live show is just insane. Definitely one of those bands that, like, you go to see them live and you're like, whoa, just because of the sheer number of people in the band and stuff, and you know, the amount of just like over the top portrayal is incredible. And I love the production value, how it's really high, and they just, you know, everything does a justice to everything with them. And then ultimately, I will say that, yeah, my favorite members in the band are Corey Taylor and Joey Jordison, and that's kind of what got me into them. Even though I'm a guitar player, not a drummer, I really do love Joey Jordison's style of playing. And I can't sing for the life of me. At least I don't think I could sing, and I think that Corey Taylor can. I mean, he, on a list of like at least best metal singers, because I won't speak for every singer that's ever lived, but freaking Corey Taylor is a really good singer, and that's what I think of Slipknot.